Welcome back, listeners. We're diving deep today into a story, a mystery, really, from 19th century Japan. It's called the Utsuro-bune.
Ah, the Utsuro-bune.
Now,
Yeah.
picture this. It's a time when, well, Japan was pretty isolated from the rest of the world. And then, out of nowhere, this strange vessel shows up. And get this, it's carrying a passenger, a woman, who just doesn't seem to fit in, not in that time, not in that place. It's a story that, well, it just grabs your attention, doesn't it?
It really does. It's one of those historical accounts that just sparks the imagination. And what makes it so compelling is that we're not talking about just, folklore or rumors. We're talking about actual historical records.
Written accounts.
Yeah.
And they describe this whole event in detail.
Yeah, and those details, they might change a bit from one text to another, like different perspectives and all, but they actually paint a pretty consistent picture of what happened on the coast of Hitachi province back in 1803.
1803. Okay, so let's start with the vessel itself. I mean, what exactly did this Utsuro-bune, which, by the way, translates to hollow ship, what did it look like?
So picture this. It's round, it's hollow, almost like a giant incense burner or maybe a rice bowl but turned upside down. You know what I mean?
Okay, I think I get the picture.
Yeah, and it was pretty big, like about 10 feet high and 17 feet wide.
Wow, that's not small.
Huh.
And was it like just some crudely built raft?
No, no, no. The sources, they describe it as being made from some really unusual materials for the time.
Like what? Give us the details.
We're talking reddish, lacquered rosewood, metal plating. There are even descriptions of windows. And these windows, they were made of glass, maybe even crystal, and sealed with resin.
Hold on. Metal plating and glass windows in 19th century Japan. That sounds, I don't know, a little ahead of its time, don't you think?
You're telling me. It definitely raises some questions about just how advanced their shipbuilding capabilities were back then. It wasn't your everyday fishing boat, that's for sure.
It makes you wonder, where on earth did this thing come from? But, before we go there, let's talk about the other big mystery here, the passenger.
Right, the woman inside the Utsuro-bune. She's just as much a mystery as the ship itself.
And she's described as beautiful.
They say she was a young woman, pale skin, reddish hair, and had it styled, get this, styled with these white extensions.
And she dressed differently.
Oh, yeah, totally. Clothes unlike anything the locals had ever seen. And here's the kicker. She spoke a language nobody understood. And to top it all off, she was carrying this small, rectangular box, wouldn't let anyone touch it.
Wow. You've got this strange vessel popping up, and then this mysterious woman comes out, can't or won't talk to anyone, and she's protecting this weird box. It's like straight out of a movie.
It really is. I mean, you can't blame people for letting their imaginations run wild with this one.
I bet. So before we do get into all that, let's get back to the facts. We have, 3 main historical texts that talk about this event.
Yeah, 3 main ones. And each one has a slightly different perspective on the whole thing, Adds another layer to the mystery.
Okay, well, I'm ready. Let's dive into those historical accounts. What can these texts tell us about this fascinating enigma?
Okay, so first up, we have the Tonshisetsu. Now, this one's really detailed, almost like a news report, straightforward, just the facts.
Just the facts. And what kind of interpretation does it give? I mean, about the woman, the ship, the whole deal.
Well, the author of this one seems to think that the woman might have been maybe a disgraced princess. Maybe she was on the run, hiding some kind of big secret.
Juicy. What kind of secret are we talking about?
Well, he even suggests that she might be carrying the head of her dead lover.
Whoa, that took a dark turn. Okay, so a runaway princess, possibly with a rather gruesome souvenir. What about the other texts? What do they say?
Okay, so we've got this historical mystery, right? And naturally, people are going to try to explain it. I mean, especially these days, with all the talk about UFOs and alien encounters, it's kind of hard not to make some connections.
Yeah, you've got this weird round vessel, and it's made with some pretty advanced tech for the time. And then there's this woman who can't or won't communicate. It does sound a little bit like some modern-day UFO reports,
Definitely. But we got to remember that, well, the Edo period was a whole different world. Back then, even a ship from, a neighboring country would have seemed totally alien to them.
Right. Back then, the world was this huge, mysterious place. What might seem advanced to us now might have just been, well, unfamiliar to them back then.
Exactly. So aliens, maybe not. But what are some other ways people try to explain the Utsuro-bune today?
Yeah, I'm curious about that. What are the other theories?
Okay, so some researchers, they're coming at it from a more historical angle, like There are these scholars, Yanakita Kunio and Kazuo Tanaka, and they say that the Utsuro-bune story, it might just be a reflection of the cultural anxieties and fascinations that people had during the Edo period.
So instead of looking to outer space,
Mhm.
maybe we should be looking at what was going on in Japan back then.
Exactly. Remember, during this time, Japan was under sakoku, which was this policy of like total isolation. They weren't really interacting with the outside world much at all.
Ah, so suddenly this stranger shows up, speaking some unknown language, arriving in this crazy vessel. I can only imagine how freaked out they must have been.
Oh, totally. It would totally mess with their worldview, you know? I mean, think about it. The fear, the confusion, this sense of like, what is going on? It's easy to see how something like that could become a legend.
So are these researchers saying that the Utsuro-bune wasn't a real event? That it was just like a story they made up to deal with their fears?
Not necessarily. They're not saying it was made up, but they're thinking that maybe the story, it got a little exaggerated over time, you know?
Yeah.
Like a game of telephone.
Right. The details change a bit as the story gets passed along.
Exactly. The Utsuro-bune might have been a real thing, maybe a foreign ship that got lost, or even some kind of natural phenomenon, who knows? But the way people understood it, the meaning they gave it, well, that was shaped by their own beliefs and fears.
That makes a lot of sense. But is there, like, any actual proof, any physical evidence to back up any of these theories?
You know, that's the million-dollar question. And the frustrating answer is, well, not really. We've got the historical texts, some sketches, this big, enduring mystery, but no artifacts, no scientific analysis, nothing that could give us a definite answer.
So we're left with a whole lot of questions and not a lot of answers. I mean, it's kind of frustrating.
Yep.
We got these little clues, the way the ship was built, the woman's looks, those weird symbols inside.
Well,
But there's no way to put it all together for sure.
I know. It's like we've got this giant puzzle, but some of the pieces are missing. But, you know, in a way, that's what keeps the story so interesting. It's that mystery that makes people keep wondering and keeps the story alive.
It's true. There's just something about a good mystery that gets us all going. And this one's a doozy. I got to admit, I'm hooked. It's like this story just taps into that part of our brain that loves to explore, that wants to figure things out.
I hear you. And it makes you think, what other mysteries are out there hidden in old books or lost in time, just waiting to be rediscovered?
Chills, man. But, okay, let's not get too sidetracked here. Back to the Utsuro-bune. What are some of the big questions that we still have? What should our listeners be thinking about?
For me, it all goes back to the woman. I mean, who was she? Where did she come from? What was she doing there? What was in that box that she guarded so fiercely? Was she running from something? Was she a traveler from some distant land? Or was it something else entirely?
It's her story that really makes this mystery so fascinating. And it seems like, well, her voice is lost to history. Unless, of course, there's more information out there just waiting to be found.
Who knows? Maybe there's a lost diary somewhere, or some hidden artifact, or even a new way to understand the texts we already have. It's an exciting thought. The possibility that there's still more to this story, it's like the mystery itself is out there, adrift, just waiting for someone to pull it ashore and finally crack it wide open.
I love that. So maybe we'll never know for sure what the Utsuro-bune was or where it came from. But one thing's for sure, we've uncovered some pretty wild possibilities along the way.
Mhm.
But before we wrap up, let's take a moment to think about what this whole story can teach us.
Yeah, because even without all the answers, the Utsuro-bune has a lot to say about us, about how we think. And we'll dig into that right after this break.
Okay, so we've looked at the historical records, we've talked about some of the modern theories, and even without having all the answers, I think there's a lot we can learn from the story of the Utsuro-bune.
Definitely. The Utsuro-bune, it's kind of like a mirror, you know? It shows us how we react when we encounter something we don't understand, something that doesn't fit into our neat little boxes.
Yeah, you can really see that in all the different ways people have tried to explain it, from the princess to the exile to the alien. I mean, each explanation kind of says more about the people who came up with it than about the actual event itself.
Exactly. And that's what's so interesting. It shows us how our own biases and beliefs shape the way we understand history.
It's like, what if those villagers back then had reacted with, I don't know, curiosity instead of fear? What if they had tried to actually communicate with the woman instead of just pushing her back out to sea?
Yeah, who knows what might have happened? Maybe we'd have a totally different understanding of the whole thing. But then again, maybe the mystery itself is part of what makes this story so powerful.
It teaches us that it's okay to not know everything, to be comfortable with uncertainty.
Exactly. And it challenges us to think critically, to question our own assumptions. Like, when we're looking at evidence, do we just go for the easiest explanation? Or are we willing to consider that maybe, just maybe, there are things out there that we can't explain with our current understanding of the world?
I mean, the Utsuro-bune definitely pushes us in that direction, right? It makes us wonder if there's more to reality than we currently know.
Absolutely. It's that sense of wonder, of possibility, that makes this story so captivating. It reminds us that we don't have all the answers and that there are still mysteries out there waiting to be explored.
And who knows? Maybe someday new evidence will come to light. Maybe we'll finally get some answers about the Utsuro-bune. But until then, it serves as a powerful reminder of just how much we don't know about the world and how much there still is to discover. It's a story that sparks our curiosity, it makes us think critically, and it fills us with a sense of wonder. And that I think, is pretty amazing.
Well said. The Utsuro-bune might be lost to history, but its story continues to inspire us.
The truth is, here,